this lobby continues to deliver on the action. We're going to jump into game number 2. Bryce, Frodan, take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Casanova. Welcome, everybody, to Lobby C Game 2, the first day of the Dragonlance Mid Set Finale. We're hopping on board with the previous winner of Round 1. That was happening off the main broadcast, but everyone's still streaming here on twitch.tv. If you want to check out Bert's POV, it's /Bertasaurus 8. That's the number 8. Y-O-U. Bertasaurus 8U. Bert is a player that's been getting so much hype coming into today. Once again, back-to-back ranked 1 on the power rankings. Bryce, why is Bert so highly regarded by all the other top players in the region?
Feels like Bert does it all. He is very creative in how he plays best board. He's super fluid throughout the game. He sees lines a lot differently than people and is able to connect across multiple trees that people will play against. He's very confident and correct in his item decision making. He plays tempo really well. He can play loss streak. He can play win streak. What can't this guy do?
Well, Bertasaurus, in his own words, felt like he is high rolling a lot of the times in tournaments, which is just a mark of his humility. I think Bert has a really strong insight into the game. As you mentioned, Bryce, his macro is so strong. When we say macro in teamfight tactics, we're talking about the ability to recognize the game state and understand the direction that you should be building towards. And if you are hearing that and thinking for the first time, wow, do players actually do that? That is usually the key to unlocking deep analytical play in TFT at the highest level. Take a look at Bert's drops here. It looks like he sells the Anivia and holds onto the Souless. Given that he was holding some Dragomancers and Jade units, I thought it was going to be the inverse of that. With that tier, maybe he's looking to go more into that AP line. Starts off with one of the strongest silver augment choices in the game in Jade Crest. The stats on it are outrageous, but there's also some really interesting picks with Double Trouble on the table and then a generic pick in second win.
Yeah, a lot of optionality for Bert. The Jade Crest is so generically powerful, but he doesn't have a ton of copies of Karma and Taric, which really tie that early game board together. He goes for it anyway. He already had the Ash. He's able to find the Karma, so we will get the Jade board online, but not a front line to speak of in the situation. Chooses to level, going to be able to use the Dragonmancer emblem to get a little bit of extra HP onto that set, choosing to slam a Static Shiv. This is textbook solid play from Bertasaurus.
Yeah, that's right. Even though it's a 1-star unit, giving the Dragonmancer buff and the Jade emblem, which is a little bit of extra health, every uncraftable emblem does end up giving a little bit of that HP stat boost. So he's able to run over boards that did not level, for example, TSM Souless. Quite the enigma on the other side of the battlefield. Souless comes into this tournament as a player that is very much capable of going 32nd. Also, a player that people wouldn't be terribly surprised to go all the way and maybe even top 1. Such an interesting player to watch as we do head over to one of the other players that's also known for his first Wraith playstyle. It's Milk Guy.
Milk Guy coming off a 5th, I believe, in the first game, so totally fine qualification position. Remember, for today, we're losing a third of the field, so you don't have to be in the top 8 heading into tomorrow. You just need to survive and advance, and 5th places throughout the day, you know, about there, right? You averaging a 4.5, you certainly get there. Milk with an upgraded Taric available, already has the upgraded Karma on his board as well. He took Tiny Titans at 130 HP. He is very healthy. How do you feel about that augment selection?
I think it fits his playstyle really well. Milk is a player that will be willing to lose every part of the early game in order to build his economy, and Tiny Titans gives him a lot of flexibility for his specific strategy. Now, that being said, heading into today, I had a chance of talking extensively with Milk, and he just feels like his game plan is all over the place. He feels very disorganized with what item he starts. He's not sure about the compositions he wants to land upon, and so his confidence is quite shaky. Even yesterday when we were discussing who to potentially do in our own personal fantasy drafts between myself, Bryce, Ramblin', and Asa, Milk was telling us, like, don't draft me. I don't feel confident going this week. And I thought I should have been rank 1 at the beginning of the week, Thursday night. I feel like I'm going 32nd.
Yeah, Milk is so hard to gauge in these situations because I feel like before each and every tournament he is saying that he is in some state of bad form, but then the tournament rolls around and Milk is always there in the hunt competing, the most successful tournament player in the history of North American teamfight tactics. So I'm going to choose to ignore that take from Milk. He is a force to be reckoned with in this tournament, as he always is.
Yeah, Yeah. Taking a look at his board, you can see why that is. A lot of people would kind of feel like, wow, I have to play around the Jades, but do I get the Guardian value on his 2-star Taric? Just go with a standard strong board and just play 2 stars. And Karma, you don't necessarily need that healing. She's not getting attacked directly, and the attack speed is beneficial, but not super crucial. In the end, this is just good, solid stage 2 board. And Milk playing with Tiny Titans and streaking is going to be super dangerous. A lot of people believe that if you have Tiny Titans, you should just lose all of stage 2. But actually, the real power of Tiny Titans is in the mid stages of the game. You can totally also choose to go into a lose streak in order to greed for a very powerful fast 8, maybe even a fast 9 if all the stars align.
Yeah, and Milk is the type of player who's absolutely capable of doing that, so we'll have to check back in and see how his stage 3-4 is looking. Going on to our first carousel, we see some interesting augment selections. I would love to take a look at Saintvicious' board coming out. We see an AFK over there, one of my favorite augments. Saint has just been relaxing for the first 3 fights of Stage 2 and is about to get a nice little bounty as his reward for that relaxation.
That's right, AFK give you 20 gold, but you can't do any actions the first few rounds of Stage 2. And also, he's very healthy. 86 implies that he only lost by a total of 7 units across 3 fights, which is very good. If you actually consider the context of what it's like to play AFK, that means he either killed some units or other people were open with him as well. We're taking a look at bossoskills, a player from the NG clan. You're going to see that tag a lot throughout the broadcast and the weekends. Largely just a group of friends who practice together, discuss TFT. bossoskills was also telling me that he feels like he does not have the patch clicked. He, in his own words, lost around 600 LP on ladder in a week, which is brutal for your confidence. But so far, looking pretty good. Streaking at right now 3, and looks like he's going to get this win versus Saintvicious, who is dedicated to lose streaking. If you can finish off stage 2 in a 5 streak with these generic items and having a plus guild, gives him so much flexibility and also a lot of late game power if he's even able to lean into a potential guild vertical.
Yeah, a lot of flexibility. This is super generic in terms of the item slamming, and you see him straddling this trainer line that we'll be seeing tons of throughout the weekend. Early trainer is just so powerful. It used to be that when you saw a trainer, you basically always went up on Corki boards, but there's a lot more versatility to the current iteration of trainer. People are playing around mage boards with Siphon. Sometimes it's Ao Shin boards. There's just a lot you can do, and I really like that bossoskills is playing around this core. Actually choosing to back out of the trainers after investing into it early, just wants to play what he feels like is his strongest board, playing around those mages with that early Silas, and getting the Senna back in. Senna 2 choosing to actually sell all those trainers as well. Do you agree with this decision, Dan?
I agree. I think he needs to play a strong board to finish off stage 2, and he's going up against Milk potentially. Does not. That's a very fortunate outcome unless he ends up losing to Bert. Bert's still playing a pretty much all 1-star board plus a set. It's actually kind of a miracle that he's at 94, but if you take into account the fact that players like Saintvicious in the lobby is also relatively healthy, picking AFK, it all makes sense. Well, this set refuses to die. Is there a hidden, Stone Plate Gargoyle on that unit? What is going on? Refused to die for the longest time. And now it's just the backliners versus each other. Ezreal's now focusing the Senna, doesn't end up getting another
Rise cast?
Wow, devastating loss here for bossoskills. It looked like a free matchup. When you took a closer look at it, Bert board was very sturdy, just having that set 2 anchor. One of the best stage 2 units you could possibly 2-star.
Yeah, just a very well-built board by Bert, and that one really hurts if you're bossoskills because he chose to sacrifice his kind of future investment in trainer for current strongest board, desperately trying to maintain that win streak and not able to do it, not even going up against Milk, the theoretical strongest board in the lobby, as our only win streaker. So we have Milk at the top, actually 130 HP because of Tiny Titans, and we see Souless and Stellar Minhee and Saibur all the way at the bottom, 72, 72, and 68 HP respectively.
On the opposite side, we also see another streak snapped here. Saintvicious, 4 loss, 1 win, which means that it's pretty crucial for him to win this next round going into stage 3-2 with the augment and also the option to roll down. He does go to 6 here, very cheap for him. It only costs 1 gold, and that's assuming he doesn't sell a lot of the stuff on his bench in order to make that 50 interval. And his spot's pretty decent. Has a 2-star Heimerdinger ramping up that trainer. And this could be a variation of trainer that a lot of people talk about. People believe that the buff to 3 trainer and doubling that damage from Namzi's cast means that you can just play any dragon with Namzi. It doesn't have to be Siphon. You could even theoretically play it in Jade boards or even with Deja if the situation calls for it. And that's kind of the openness that Saint has right now, which is pretty creative and something that I expect from a player of his caliber. Saint's known to play very open to these kinds of unusual combination of lines, going back to even set 3 when that was his best performances to date. I would love to see that set 3 Galaxy Saint come back here for Dragon.
Yeah, Saint has been a very inconsistent player throughout the history of his competitive teamfight tactics career. When he is good, he is very good, very scary. He oftentimes has unusual beats on the meta. He's also had plenty of tournaments where he has really struggled, not been in peak form for whatever reason. But he was actually feeling very confident heading into today. I was in his stream earlier today asking about his form, and he was, 1, very confident, thinks he's good, and 2, mortally offended that none of us picked him, and then he wound up on the leftover team of the fantasy draft. So he's got a chip on his shoulder that we have created for him. He is in peak form. Look out for Saintvicious this weekend.
You know, some players thrive off of that. It gives them that little extra motivation. It helps them stay a little bit more focused. I love that he took that personally, and if that ends up sparking that flame for Saint to go on a mad charge, I do it again. I will snub him every time it needs to, because I would love nothing more than that intro video you heard at the beginning of the show. Saint says, I want to be the first player to make it to League of Legends World Championship as well as the TFT World Championships. That would be epic. Going up against Milk, who is still streaking, hits an early itis, and that first Shimmer Scale item is Mogul Mail, which if you hit 40 charges will get you that 2 extra gold, and you get that stacking amount of defensive stats. With Itis anchoring alongside a 2-star Taric, there's nothing that's going to be penetrating that front line, giving infinite time for this Archangel and the Karma to scale. Milk is in a dominant position to be able to utilize this lead to go for a snowball high-capped board at the end of this game.
Yeah, Milk is in an insane position economically. He's in an insane position health-wise, and those are the 2 primary resources. He also has some pretty good item slam for capping out boards, which are primarily done around 10-cost dragons, all of which are ability power units right now. Archangel is best in slot on Shyvana and on Aoshin and Aurelion Sol, as well as the Ionic Spark. So really, really nice everything going on for Milk. It seems like it is his lobby to lose at this point, joining Casper, who was actually on a streak before this round, but just took a loss for the first time in 5 rounds. Has a okay board and playing around that trainer that we've been talking so much about.
They're looking pretty solid to start things off to give that support damage. Does end up going up Saintvicious, who has hit the Shield naturally and is now flexing into the Jade trainer line that we discussed as a possibility. That Bloodthirster, the most important item onto Shield these days, if you were to believe the data. And just look at those items also on the Thieves Gloves, the Chalice of Power, and the Banshee's Claw, able to give some additional utility, keeping his board alive, give you some extra oomph. The downside of Trainer, there's not many, but this is one of them. Heimerdinger really isn't a unit, especially if you're not playing mages. So Saint is actually playing functionally 5v6 in that fight.
Yeah, unfortunate. It was, trainer versus trainer battle, both folks investing. As we go to our second carousel, we see Souless beelining for that Rise with Rod. It's a double silver lobby so far in terms of the augment selections. Nothing super jumping out at me from these choices. Another Tiny Titans pick, or a couple more Tiny Titans picks. We see Thieves Gloves grab. Souless actually recombobulated. Okay, we have to see what Souless's board is. I know we're here. I just cannot wait to get out of this carousel and onto the board to see what Mortdog had in store for this man.
All right. Well, the Recombobulator gave him 2 copies of Ornn. And it seems like Souless is going for a fast 7, level up to 3-5, rolling it down, has an opportunity to make a Braum 2. Looks like he's skipping it. Doesn't feel like he has a specific game plan in mind formulating, as he's passing a lot of build-around pieces.
Whoa.
Past the Corki, past the Jades, both the Shiryu and as well as the Nico. Looks like he's going for Mirage of some kind. Or rather, the Mirage line. You can see him utilizing Qiyana too as an item holder. Quite unusual. Qiyana has largely fallen out of the meta because combination of Xayah being a lot weaker, and Qiyana was a big linchpin of that, as well as just assassins and just not being super common. So I don't have a lot of confidence in Souless' board. That being said, he did level and roll, so it'd be even more devastating if he lost this fight. And it's closer than he would like it to be. That Nunu 2 is going to go down. Now he just fired all opposite direction. Orin drops. I don't know if he has the DPS to finish this fight. If Soul's going to lose here, that would be absolutely crushing.
Oh, the Leona's got him in overtime. So much base AD on that Leona with the extra attack speed from overtime. It is just slapping away. We have not talked about the Mirage yet. It is duelist dexterity. It leads to ramping attack speed. Each time you auto-attack, you get some more attack speed. It's very, very strong. Definitely one of the, considered one of the stronger iterations of Mirage. Maybe not the kind of ultimate S tier, but very much playable. He really just needs one Deja to feel good about his spot from my perspective. He's got the Hecarim already. He's got the upgraded Nunu. He's got a pair of Orns as well, but he's really lacking that consistent source of damage.
And his itemization is also pretty awkward as well. Just a couple too many swords. Going up against Saintvicious, who, by the way, pivoted his board again. You see him go back into that Mirage line, having picked up an early Deja. Xiaoyu was not cutting it on the trainer board, has now even ditched that trainer entirely. And now Saint committing to that Deja. Look at the attack speed as Duelist Dexterity is at full charge. This Kayla 2 makes some magic happen. Waiting for a disarm, but not able to withstand the Wind Blast. That is going to be a loss for Souless. A huge defeat here, as he was not able to finish off his Stage 3 campaign with a 3-win streak.
Joining Stellar Minhee's board for the first time. He's got a fairly generic board that is, a nice hodgepodge of units. Been playing around the Dragonmancer Jade line that we've seen a lot of. He's got an Archangel slammed. He actually has a Duplicator plus a Spatula on the bench, so a lot of potential power here for Stellar Minhee. Be very interesting to see what direction he goes. I feel like he has actually a ton of options from this spot. No swords, a lot of AP items, so I think that eliminates Jade as a realistic line from here. Will he be rolling down on 4-1? I would expect him to, but the fact that he did not roll at all on neutrals and that he hasn't started rolling yet suggests to me that this man is looking for a fast 8 on the next round, trying to play around that Duplicator and see if we can play around one of these 10-cost dragons. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, I think that's the line that Stellar Minhee wants to go for. I mean, with the mages being held on the bench, that clearly is what he's angling for. I feel like this has a ton of volatility to it because you are guaranteed a gold or a prismatic augment next, which means the power level is going to spike dramatically. And you don't know if you can stabilize guaranteed. Going against Souless, who did hit that Deja. That is so crucial for Souless to be able to stabilize here. If he can get that win with his 2-star Cavalier board, and he also 2-starred Ornn, all of a sudden, Souless went from a position where I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out to being in a very good spot to potentially top 4.
Yeah, Souless fans rejoice. Dan among them. I know you've got him on a couple of fantasy teams. Souless got off to a rough start, but a big stabilization moment for Souless in beginning of stage 4. Hopefully he's able to keep it up. Joining, we're actually still on, do we move to Milk's board? It looks like we're on Milk's board now. I can't tell. It looks like we are still on Stellar Minhee's board. Okay, we're still on Stellar Minhee's board, which is great because we're going to get to see this big roll down. Hasn't invested in the trainer yet, by the way, so he's not going to have a bunch of Nomsy stacks, which is a fairly big deal when you're on this line.
Yeah, it just means that your frontline options are going to be a lot weaker. End up skipping things like the Itis as the frontline anchors. Instead, just going to go with Nico, Ornn, and Silas. And quite frankly, Bryce, I don't know how much stronger Stellar Minhee got from this roll down. Skipping a Siphon has resulted in a Siphon to shop. And already a moment of questionable series of rolls here from Stellar Minhee. Not necessarily because I think that it's just straight up wrong to pass everything, but I felt like there were so many options that I could spend like an hour breaking down what certain options were available to Stellar Minhee. How do we feel about the result of this 4-2 roll down, Bryce?
Well, the result doesn't feel very good, right? We find one Deja, which I guess is okay, but clearly he wanted to find any copy of a 10-cost dragon. In particular, Aoshin would have been really good from his spot and synergized well with his itemization and his board state. This Deja is not going to be stable in a vacuum. Going up against bossoskills, Stellar's taking a loss. I don't know that you can afford to play the Siphon there with essentially no items because there's no 4-cost AP carry in the set, so with the double Archangel, you need to be able to play around one of these AP carries, and that basically means Dragon. So tough spot for him, not able to hit the units he was looking for. joining Saibur for the first time with an 8 bruiser line. Not something you see every day.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about it because we saw a Bruiser Heart taken early with weak spot. That usually implies that you want to play for a Siphon Whispers line. But he's playing Olaf as a temporary carry, I assume, because he's not re-rolling for Olaf 3 at the moment. However, a lot could change if he finds another couple Olafs in the shops. Maybe he just commits to the Scale Scorn. I think the Scale Scorn's a really big deal. In fact, personally, I would even want to shy away from 8 Bruiser so I can play things like Scale Scorn, because that extra damage and the damage reduction is a big deal now that you're getting to the point where even Namzi can be a significant threat. But at this point, 8 Bruiser is also a stat check, and you're looking at players like casparwu, level 7, 50 gold, has not really rolled down significantly, holding a ton of units on his bench. Casper is rich, and so having a good matchup there is a moment of reprieve. As we take a look at the carousel, there's a Yasuo with a spatula, and immediately Stellar Minhee goes for it.
Well, he does have the Deja already, and he's got a duplicator. He can definitely just hard commit and play around the Mirage line. A spatula on Yasuo is absolutely disgusting. This unit with a Cavalier spat is just so powerful because each and every time it dashes for its ultimate, it counts as triggering the Cavalier buff, so it's getting the defensive stats. So it's just ridiculously tanky, in addition to doing a ton of damage and having a bunch of CC to go with it. Hopping on board with Milk, who is up at 90 HP, has been making great use of the Tiny Titans throughout this game, as we discussed. And is he not going to roll here? It looks like Milk might be contemplating a fast 9.
Oh, that is my guy, Milk guy. I mean, this is exactly up the alley. In fact, it feels nice knowing that Milk is in his comfort zone. He wouldn't do this unless he knew exactly what he was signing up for. And Fast 9 into Stabilize is right up his alley. He has so much HP. And it's also, his board isn't that bad. It should kill some units. And Milk's not looking to win. Winning is just a nice bonus. He's looking to kill half the boards, at least like 3 to 4 champions per fight, which he should be able to get done with this board. Even better, he might be able to get a win versus Souless. If Souless' frontline cracks, Nunu finally able to get through the itis. And
wow.
Milk ends up taking a fantastic loss, almost as good as it gets.
Yeah, that's best case scenario for Milk. He would actually prefer probably to lose just, 1 unit, 2 unit losses and keep his economy ramping for that Fast 9. You called it out at the very beginning of the game that Milk is so comfortable using that tempo Tiny Titans into a Fast 8 or a Fast 9. That's exactly what we're seeing. I can't wait to check back in on his board for that level 9 transition. Meanwhile, Stellar Minhee got off of the Deja carry, chose to make a Tactician's Crown with that Yasuo with Spatula off of the carousel, and hit an Aurelion Soul. So this board state is much different than the last time we saw it. How are you feeling about it, Dan?
It's okay. So the reason why this fast stage strategy can work at its core is to make sure your front line can stall long enough for either Aoshin or Aurelion Soul. And Aurelion Soul has 2 Archangel stats as well as Ascension. So if we can get to the Ascended part, which is 18 seconds into the fight for Aurelion Soul, this is going to put out a lot of damage. And that Silas is holding on for dear life. Bertasaurus' Dragon Horde board unable to crack it. So it looks good to me. Stellar Minhee able to identify what makes the Fast 8 Dragon viable. It's not the Dragon itself necessarily. It's how good your front line is. The longer you can stall, the higher chance you have for victory.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. Hopping on board with Milk, who was able to hit an Aurelion Soul of his own, so he's gotten a lot stronger than the last time we saw him. I think he would prefer to play around Aoshin this game because he has that Spear of Shojin, which suggests Aoshin to me, but hey, you play what you hit, and in this situation, he hit Aurelion Soul, so that's what we're going to play around for now. He's also going to build an Edge of Night, an item that works well to keep his carry alive for the time being, and I ultimately expect this to wind up being a double Archangel Staff plus a Shojin on an Aoshin, and then he's going to play around Yasuo with that Edge of Night. Milk is thinking 3 steps ahead for his level 9 board and his itemization selection.
There's a lot that went into this decision. One, Milk noticed a lack of defensive items. So he had, wow, I have 3 vests. How can I utilize it? 2, a lot of people look at Aurelion Soul and they look at Aoshin and they say, don't I want something like a Gunblade or a Bloodthirster or a Hand of Justice so I can keep healing? You look at Milk's augments, he has 2 healing sources. So if he can just keep the Aurelion Soul alive with the 2 Archangel staffs. I mean, he doesn't have Ascension like Stellar Minhee, but at its core, he's constructing his board in a very intelligent way. And the best part about it is that Milk's board looks quite fraudulent on paper, but it still has possibility of even winning fights if they can't crack the front line in a timely manner. Let's go up and see against Bertasaurus, who has Nico 2 with 2 Warmogs and a 1-star Shyvana to complement it. Is this enough to take down Milk's board? As we do see the Aurelion Soul getting the first cast in. Shyvana's second descent able to crack the rest of it. So Milk does take a pretty heavy loss. This was not the kind of losses that he was looking for.
No, it's not, but some of these losses are inevitable on your way to a Fast 9. Meanwhile, Bertasaurus is just in scrapping it out for top 4 mode if at all possible. His board is definitely fraudulent. Bert is going to be happy to get a 4th or 5th place in this game, so very, very happy to go up against Milk's board on that round. Basically, at this stage, everyone is praying they get the matchmaking RNG to face Milk, because Milk is the weakest board in this lobby for this turn, and only this turn. Next turn, I expect him to be all in. Milk is incredible at capping out his boards at level 9, so play him now while you still can and get that W.
Meanwhile, who's Milk want to face on the opposite side? Going up against another weak spot player, Stellar Minhee. It's the Aesol Mirror. Dual Gauntlet is the weapon of choice to outfit it. Does have a Soraka to help swing the fight. And so Milk, again, just trying to clean up units. It kind of depends on where this Aurelion Soul ends up landing.
Oh.
Doesn't end up killing a lot of units. This is almost a full team wipe. And Milk now down to 29 HP, but hey, that's still more than enough. And funny enough, without Titans, he would be straight up dead at this point. Let's take a look at what's happening around the Convergence. Bossoskills now in 8th place at 14 HP, but focusing on Milk's roll down. Here we go. What's he going to be able to collect here?
We're looking for the golden units. There's Yasuo. He does have Aurelion Soul 2 potential here with the duplicator if he decides to go for that. There's the Aoshen. Will he go for the Cell here? It's a tough spot because he can make the Aurelion Soul 2 right now. He just prefers the Aoshen. I like this decision. Very decisive from Milk, playing for first place. Wants to play for the highest cap board he can.
Okay. Decides to go for the Mystic the last second. Needs to get the items on. And the order does kind of matter. Ends up going for the Shojin and double Archangels. Very astute, because now that if he has a Yasuo, he can put the Edge of Night onto there as well. Does actually get the cast. Does end up getting it off. Kills off most of the army. Yasuo can also finish the job here with the Execute. And that should do it. Milk has stabilized for one fight, and here we go. Let's see how far Milk can able to take this, as you do lose one member out of our 8-player lobby. Bossoskills, after that devastating finish to his Stage 2 campaign, ends in 8th place. Saibur, not too far behind him, ends up taking that Zoe with the Shroud, so one of the best units already gone. Milk ends up losing some more additional front line. Looks like he's going to take this Sunfire Cape. And, you know, Sunfire Cape is late in the game. Not nearly as impactful, but still pretty useful.
Yeah, he doesn't have any anti-heal, and there's just so much healing throughout the meta right now that it feels like a great placeholder. He would prefer the ZZ route for additional stall. His board really only needs to stall to find success, but someone grabbed it before him, rejoining Souless, who has stabilized very nicely from that 4-1 roll down at 35 HP. Seems to be in solid position to be able to top 4. Playing around that Pandora's Bench augment to ultimately hit this Deja 2 in the contested Deja lobby on Duelist Dexterity. Has a Cavalier Yasuo. We were singing that praises earlier. This is a solid iteration of the Mirage board from Souless. Not very likely to top 1, but has a good chance at going top 4 from here.
And that's all really he cares about. Souless with the 7th place in game 1. Not optimal. Didn't even really bother moving his Zephyr. If there's one weakness of Souless' play, well, there's several that other players will tell you, but one of them does seem like Souless isn't particularly good at that control to be able to Zephyr the right target, to planning on a relatively meaningless unit. And I guess it's a question of whether or not this Aoshin can be able to cast one more time before the Daze is able to get for another Wind Blast. And here we go, the final showdown between the two dragons. It's so close. Souless takes a loss and another big win for Milk, as we do drop off another player. Saibur with another bot 2 finish.
There it is. It is very, very hard to beat a capped Aoshin board in this meta. Delicious Milk with an an Aoshin 2 with incredibly good items. He's also got this Yasuo pair. He also has incredible flexibility on these items. Like for the Yasuo, for example, he has Remover, so he can play around Yasuo items. I think, we talked earlier about how Milk was in the driver's seat to win that game, and he seems to be pulling away.
Pulling away for now. We haven't checked on every other board. So this is one of the players I was curious about because he was streaking. Stellar Minhee streaking with almost an entire 1-star board with a 2-star Sylas. So going back to that core principle we talked about, if you're going to go for the fast 8, make sure you have a sturdy front line. Aoshin 2 wiping absolutely everything. Stellar Minhee is going to take a major loss. And this is a place of false comfort for Stellar Minhee. They were feeling okay, they were streaking, but all of a sudden, one nasty loss puts bot 4 on the table for him, as well as Souless and casparwu. All of a sudden, the tables have turned. Those who felt like they were in a decent spot for top 4 were not sure anymore.
Wow, and Bertasaurus, who has won a couple of fights with a 1-star carry on this Deja, gets a Soraka 2 and a Deja 2 offered to him in the same shop, Dan. This is so big for Bert's chances of going top 4 in this game.
It is. Deathblade isn't the best, but it's usable. So we can go off of that. The itemization here, also a little bit awkward. It's more of the sum of its parts, and that's kind of what Dragon Horde or Dragon Alliance boards are. You don't have to feel like one dragon is the carry. It can really be a strong team effort, and with this Deja 2, even with semi-scuffed items, I think that's good enough. The lobby's getting intense, though. Stellar Minhee hit Zoe 2 and Ornn 2. Saintvicious also rolling down, and he's very healthy. And these boards are all within Bert's matchmaking range. You can see him scouting and see if we can get the right positioning. Does he grieve for full Jade? Does he separate? Does he try to manipulate how people are targeting his units? We're about to find out.
Yeah, he goes with a fake swap. He keeps that Deja in the incredibly secure square in the bottom right hand of your board. There's only 2 units that can possibly surround it. Going up against Milk's incredibly capped Aoshin board. And this is going to all come down to whether or not the Aoshin kills this Deja on first cast, or if maybe Deja can live long enough here to get a couple casts off. The Shyvana is in the backline onto the Aoshin. There's no healing on the Aoshin, but the Thrill procs come out. Aoshin is able to stay alive off of the thrill of the hunt. Healing so big, 3-unit loss for Bert, and his game is still very much in jeopardy. Stellar Minhee out in 6th place. Bert and Casper, along with Souless, all potentially on 1 life as we head into 6-2.
It's really intense. Don't look now, by the way. Saintvicious hitting bar 2 and on a streak. Bert his Shyvana 2. The lobby is heating up. Who's going to be able to sneak their way into the top 4? Casper is right now on the outside looking in, but with 1 commanding victory. Or rather, if Souless and Bert take a loss, which are not available in his matchmaking pool, we'll see. He does have Namzi at 4-star. He's going to go for the second row Namzi. The tech even thought about moving Corki up. These are very strong offensive setup here for Casper. Is it going to be enough? He goes up against Milk, who is on that streak. Can the Siphon get to the back line? Charges, fights Lulu, and not the Aoshin. Here comes the Lightning Rain. There is a Dragon's Claw to potentially keep the Siphon alive, and it doesn't end up killing. Can Siphon make some magic happen? We've seen some miraculous comebacks, but no, it fights a 1 HP Bard. Casper takes uncontested 5th, and TSM Souless somehow, by the hair of his chinny chin chin, sneaks into a top 4.
Wow, our top 4 is secure. The 4 most well-known players in this lobby, Saintvicious, Milk Guy, Bertasaurus, and Souless, all getting big top 4 points. The question that remains is, can anyone defeat Milk Guy's board? We are looking at Bert, who has a big upgrade in that Shyvana 2. That is a huge spike for Bert. So maybe he can be a threat. Can that Shyvana get access to the Aoshin? I'd also love to check back in on Saint's board, since we haven't had a chance to look at that in a little while, see if he's been able to cap out and get to a state where he is scary enough to be able to deal with Milk. Meanwhile, we have the battle for 3rd place, Bertasaurus and Souless. Someone is going to die here.
Bert dodged both Zephyrs, basically. The Soraka 2 is the only unit that got hit by it. Here come the Wind Blast back and forth. Descent by Shyvana is burning up everything, and it is 1 versus 2 dragons. That is simple enough math to show that Souless is taking 4th place. Bert has earned the 3rd, but can he fight for more than that, as Saint does end up losing to Milk? It makes sense. Milk has, by all means, the highest capped board in the game. That doesn't allow you to play multiple dragons. there's something that Bert's looking for right now, immediately beelines for the Yasuo with the Quicksilver.
Yeah, and I know he had at least one copy of Yasuo. If Bert can somehow find his way into a Yasuo 2 to complete this, Quicksilver is such a good item on Yasuo because it's a melee unit. It gets into the fray, but he had the pair. So this is a Shyvana 2, a Yasuo 2, insane items on this Neeko 2, and as well as some backline damage from the Deja. So Bert's board is incredibly strong. A lot of this, quite frankly, is going to come down to positioning and maybe a little bit of fight RNG. Does the Shyvana get to an angle where it can kill the Aoshin? We saw that Milk's Aoshin doesn't have any healing already on its itemization, so it has to get the kills to get the thrill of the hunt proc. So a lot of interesting dynamics as we head into these final few fights.
Yeah, not really getting full Banshee's value just to try to make sure they get corner to corner. Going up against Saintvicious, who does have that Mirage board in a really good state. The itemization is super powerful, but the augments, it feels like Saint has very little power in his augments for the combat. Here comes the Dragon's Ascent, again, melting the front line instantaneously, and the tandem duo Dragons really came up huge, but for some reason the Wind Blast #2 from Bert ended up going the wrong direction. And Bert ends up taking a loss, but thanks to the healing, should just barely stay alive.
Yeah, barely stay alive indeed. 1 HP for Bert. He has a crazy number of 2-star legendaries at level 8. He has been farming Bard odds, so he's got 10% shop on his legendary, so that's why we're seeing so many of those upgrades. Meanwhile, Saintvicious, with that double Zeke's Thieves' Gloves roll on the Hecarim, probably made the difference in that fight. I would love to see a rematch there to see if it goes any differently. Saints board definitely looks strong. I just am not sure, as we see he's going to go up against Milk once again, does he have what it takes to actually get access to this Aoshin line before Aoshin kills everything?
It's going to be really tough. Milk fortified his front line even further. And the Onslaught did not even get onto the Aoshin whatsoever. Aoshin's about to go for a big lightning rain. This is not even close, right?
The two most important units are alive.
Yeah, the lightning rain didn't target any of the carries. It actually kept both of them alive, so the second one will just have to do, I suppose. But in reality, you can just see how much stuff Milk got in the way. The Trainer, the ZZ Rot, the Sturdy Frontline, the Zoe Daisy. There's so much stuff. And it's just hard to take it down fast enough before that second Aoshin cast.
Yeah, there's just no backline access for Saintvicious. I think Saintvicious essentially has a 0% chance of beating Milk's board. I mean, if Milk wants to full throw and frontline the Aoshin or something, maybe. But if Milk plays safe, secure TFT, which we obviously know he will, I don't see how Saint can possibly get a fight win there. Bertasaurus does have some possibility, right? Because this Shyvana 2 plus the Yasuo 2, you could theoretically get access to Milk if you can either circumvent the frontline with the Shyvana or get through it fast enough. So that fight feels a little bit scary, although Saint did just hit a Yasuo 2, which is a big spike, and Milk now has a Yasuo 2 as well. It is 3 Yasuo 2s in our final 3 boards. Everybody is getting pretty capped out here, especially since it's a silver-gold lobby. You don't expect to get to quite these power levels.
Yeah, it's balanced, right? Everyone has Yasuo 2. Game is balanced. Everyone is fighting on equal footing, right? Well, we're about to find out as Bertasaurus has another showdown. Bert with a full clump into the Jade statue to see if he can get max value. And that Neeko from Milk, or rather the Zephyr from Milk, is money as he's able to take down that frontliner. The spread also is pretty favorable, depends on where Shyvana chooses to target. And somehow aims backwards. Bertasaurus takes 1,000,000 damage. Goes down to -18, and Saint is able to fight for top 2. And if it's going to be a repeat of what ended up happening last time, I feel like it's very likely because Milk 2-starred both of his legendaries, and he hit a Zephyr, and he still has an item remover to maybe even cherry pick to where he wants to get the ideal Zephyr at the beginning of the next fight.
Yeah, Milk also on multiple lives here, so it doesn't feel like he has to use that remover right away, potentially just thinking about the Saintvicious matchup. He does want to spread his units to make sure that this Yasuo does not get big CC. He did use the remover, so we're going to have a Zephyr to cheese. Did Saintvicious notice that? He's going to move to a square where he cannot get his primary carry Zephyr.
I mean, it's pretty much corner and front center. And Milk lands it. It is money. It is a trademark of Milk's play as he's able to utilize things like control and his powerful macro in order to get a very easy, comfortable victory. The win out is what he's been aiming for a long time. And the second couch from Aoshin is the clock. Does interrupt for a brief second. That lightning ring number 2 is way too much. Milk Guy gonna crush game 2 of Lobby C and put himself in prime position to snowball that victory for a day 1 top finish.